I'm so pleased that you were able to join tonight's meeting about the project. We are excited to share project information. We will show alignment concepts for the trail and hope to answer your questions and get your comments. We are mindful that whichever route is chosen for the trail, there likely will be impacts to neighbors. Our project team, Snohomish County, and our partner, the City of Everett, are committed to working with our neighbors and other stakeholders to make the trail an asset for neighbors, Snohomish County, and the region. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the project design team to take us through tonight's agenda, presentation, and discussion.
Thank you, Ed. Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to talk with you about the project. We have a presentation, and there'll be some set times for you to chat and ask questions. So we'll show you as we go along. Get my screen going here. So we have a lot to cover, so I'm not going to go into the land acknowledgement, but just want to mention that we are respecting that this is an area with a rich history, and we're just coming along and trying to make what we can out of it in the best possible way. So our objectives for this meeting are to introduce you to the project, to share what we've learned over the past few months of working on it and some options we're considering. We want to explain some of the opportunities and constraints that are shaping the options that we're looking at, answer your questions, and hear your thoughts about the alignments and if one stands out for you. So I mentioned we have some discussion areas. So the first part of the project will just be covering background, and there'll be a little brief moment for some questions there, kind of about that content. And then we're going to jump into the trail alignment alternatives and go into more detail. And we're going to have some breakout room discussions at the end, so everyone will have a chance to discuss. And then we'll report out and return to report out and talk about next steps. You probably heard the recording start. We're recording this meeting, so you'll be able to share it with others and listen again. I mentioned we have designated times for questions. Please hold your questions until these times. We'll mention when those are. We'll have you put some of at certain points, we'll have your questions in the chat and we'll field those. And you can hold your verbal questions for the end when we have the breakout rooms. We are also going to be using Zoom polling for a couple of things, so be prepared for that. And with that, we'll get started. So Ed introduced himself, Snohomish County Parks staff. We also have from Everett Parks, Kimberly Moore. And I am Kristen Losey. I am the consultant project manager. We have a great team from Tool Design, including my colleagues Dustin DeKukuk, Sarah Udelhofen, and Adam Dorsey. We also have Liliana Hansen from Herrera Environmental Consultants. We have several other subs, including a geotech and another engineering firm. So big team, just a few of us here today. So we've come to our first polling question. What brings you to this meeting tonight? And if I pull this window in here, can you see that? Are you seeing the, no, no, okay. Let's see. Well, then I will tell you what I'm seeing. Lots of people representing an organization or an agency, quite a number of people who live in the area, a few people who own or operate property in the area, and a few people who don't live or work in the area but are interested in the future trail. Oh, I see. I can share results. Sorry. Yeah. So you can see that. Great. All right. Next. So now we're going to jump into the overview about the project. Beautiful project area along the river with agricultural lands, views of the mountains, a railroad going through it, and utilities, lots of things going on, but very pastoral landscape that we're trying to capitalize on There's the vision for the Snohomish River Regional Trail is a long-held idea that began in the 1980s for something that went along the river that provided people recreation and active transportation opportunities. With the trails that have been built in Everett and Snohomish, there's the opportunity to connect those with this trail, so the Interurban Trail to the Centennial Trail. The county is now working on the future Centennial Trail South extension, so there's a lot of opportunity here. The county purchased some right-of-way within the corridor along the PSE right-of-way. They also own several other strategic parcels in the area, and as I mentioned, Centennial Trail has just South project has just started. This project is going to be a long one. We've been working on it for a number of months, and we're only just beginning. So the first phase of the project is understanding what's out there, studying the existing conditions, identifying and evaluating potential alignments, identifying a preferred option, and then developing a concept design and cost opinion for that. This will help the county seek funding for the future phases. So additional phases include design and permitting. So that would be seeking funding for that. Technical coordination, surveys, geotech, additional wetland delineation, that kind of thing. Obtaining environmental permits, developing detailed construction documents, and phasing the projects is a big complex project, and it makes sense to break it into phases. And then finally, getting to construction, so someday in the future. And you can see at the bottom, we've highlighted that there'll be partner and community engagement throughout the first two phases of the project. So what is the vision for this trail? The county and its partners are seeing this trail as something that can serve for both recreation and active travel. A trail that connects people to nature and scenic views and important destinations, and a trail that respects neighbors, farms, and local businesses. What other things do you think should be a part of this project vision? I think our next poll is, so actually first we're asking you to rank those in order of importance. All right, let's see if I can interpret this. The the little, oh, can't share the poll yet, but the, the little slider bars are moving around. So it's actually looking pretty even right now. All three are looking pretty even. Maybe a trail that respects neighbors, farms, and local businesses is a little ahead. So I'm not able to share it yet. Right. We'll move on. Oh, here we go. Share results. Yeah, so you can see option C got the most votes. Option A, um, the second most votes, and option B is the third. Great. Most important, and important, but less so. All right. And then we have another question. Is there anything missing from the vision? So you can type your ideas into the poll, if so. People are typing. Sarah, do you do something that makes it so that I can share the poll? Yeah. I'm not seeing any of the text. So we can circle back to that. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So wanted to talk about some of the trail benefits. This is really a trail for the community. As I mentioned, I want to highlight some of the recreation and active transportation benefits. So we see this as a place where people can participate in events like maybe a running event organized by the Snohomish Running Club, a place where kids and people of all ages can get out on the trail with their friends or participate in events like Klahia Days. Girl Trek is another organization in this area that gets people out on trails, really promoting active transportation and recreation. And then obviously there's a lot of people who love to cycle in this area. So Bruce is someone who could ride his bike all day, and this route would take him to a lot of scenic areas. So. In terms of access to nature and local destination, we are planning for a number of trailheads and river access places so people can come and fish. Um, there are places we are hoping that we'll be able to accommodate interpretive signs and picnic areas and that kind of thing so people can come out and do that. And there are a number of businesses around that people might want to visit, for example, Stalker Farms and the activities that go on there. So people can use the trail to access those local destinations. And then finally, for wider community benefits, we know that there are a lot of nuisance activities that are occurring along the corridor, along the PSE and railroad corridor right now, dumping and that kind of thing. We believe that with increased activity, that a lot of those nuisance activities will go away. And with the interpretive signage and natural resources, people will have more respect for the area and want to come here and enjoy that. So I mentioned that community and stakeholder engagement will be ongoing throughout the project. Our goals in this first phase of the project have been to understand what all the other partner agencies and stakeholders' plans for the area are, understand the regulatory constraints and concerns. We also want to build community awareness, project support, and get your input on alternatives. To date, we've been out in the community a couple times, some tabling events. We are working on an online survey that will be live soon. And we've had a lot of stakeholder meetings, which I'll share in just a moment. So to date, we've talked with the Tulalip tribes, a number of Snohomish County departments, planning and development services, surface water management. We've talked with the Agricultural Advisory Board. We've been working with City of Everett Parks and their surface and stormwater groups. We've talked to the Marshland Flood Control District. The county has had ongoing coordination with Puget Sound Energy and BNSF Railway. We've also met with Harvey Airfield, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and property owners and community members. And this will continue. We have a couple of important meetings coming up with regulatory agencies and continued coordination with the tribes. So now I want to talk about how we developed our trail alignment alternatives. This is a really complex corridor. As I mentioned, the county owns some land along the PSE right away. But there's also a lot of private land along the corridor throughout. There are a lot of wetlands and streams, and so it's really important for us to avoid impacts to those. This whole area is obviously in the river floodplain. So the floodway, the floodplain, and flood control are big issues that we need to address. And then there are obviously lots of things going on in terms of businesses and bigger operations, agricultural operations, the airfield, the railroad. a lot of utilities above and below ground, and restoration plans for this rich ecosystem. So the factors that are really shaping the trail options, the kind of the primary ones that we focused on are kind of the plans that the stakeholders and agencies in the area have, and some major land use constraints, natural resource considerations, really wanting to avoid and minimize impacts, and then also thinking about what it's going to be like for people to use the trail. We want it to feel safe and comfortable and take advantage of the scenic qualities and have people provide opportunities for people to access the river and some of these special places. A number of key constraints emerged from our research. So I'm going to go through these just briefly. The Marshland Flood Control District is um, their mission is to maintain the integrity of the levee that protects those agricultural lands. The Tulalip tribes own some property in the area, and they have been thinking about restoration projects for salmon. Some of this doesn't necessarily work with the trail nearby, so we've been talking with them. The airfield has what they call a runway protection zone for safety. And so they have strongly advised us to stay away from that. Obviously, the railroad comes through here with big, fast freight trains at regular times. So we need to make sure that that can still happen and that people stay away from that. The City of Everett uses some parcels along Wood Creek for biosolid application. And then PSE still, even though the county owns some of the PSE right of way, there are other segments that they don't own, and so there would need to be a lot of coordination with PSE and also the City of Everett for working in along the PSE corridor, and the Wood Creek area. We know that bridge where the pump station is, the city has plans to upgrade that. So. And then finally, the county owns some land and would like to use that to the degree possible to minimize property acquisition and keep costs down. So that was a lot. So I'll pause here and see if people have some questions on the content we've presented so far. In the next phase, we'll jump into talking about the actual alignments. But if you have any questions about what we've covered, put those in the chat and Dustin will help field those.
And okay, looks like the chat's open, so I'll pay attention to questions that come here. So feel free to ask away. I'm sure everyone's eager to see some of the alignment options, but it's a question from Johnny asking about the Pilchuck Audubon Society, if they will be consulted. And I don't know that they've come up, but I think one of the things we want to get out of this meeting is who we're missing in this conversation. So we will take note of that. Next question from Kimberly. Does Harvey field future goals to expand impact design? It certainly does impact some of the alignment options that we're looking at that you'll see as we get into the next part of the presentation. We're very familiar with what their plans are and kind of where they're at in the environmental process for their project, and are coordinating closely with them. And we've met, as Kristen said, we've met with them and the FAA already. See here, some questions about land areas, bridge, runway protection zones. I think we're going to pull up some maps in the next section. There's a question about what parcels the county owns. And Kristen mentioned the county has acquired some property along the PSC power lines. That is on the south side of the BNSF railway. Once we pull the maps up, that'll be kind of easier to tell where that is. County also owns a number of other parcels around the river. And yeah, that's some good comments here. Not all questions, just about wildlife disturbance. Is there a set western endpoint? Kristen, you want to take that one? What's the western connection point?
Yeah, that'll be Rotary Park. That's what we're planning on. Yeah. And this is just the first phase. I believe there are plans to extend the trail further in either, I believe in either direction. Maybe Ed, you can address that.
Yes, this trail segment is actually phase one of a uh, plan to extend the regional trail further east all the way out to Monroe. But right now, this project is just about from Rotary Park to the area just south of the city of Snohomish, around Harvey Field, where it will eventually connect with the Centennial Trail South extension that will go down from Snohomish to south to Woodinville. For a connection that further west from Rotary Park, we've talked with the City of Everett about that, and I know that they are interested in, strengthening connection to the interurban trail that runs north-south. So that is long-range planning, but it's not part of this Snohomish River Regional Trail project.
Thanks, Ed. Brock had a good question about asking if there's for an option along the river, is there an opportunity to strengthen the dike to help prevent flooding? And I think that's probably more of a design question. And as Kristen mentioned, we've been already coordinating with the Marshland Flood Control District, and we know certainly maintaining the integrity of their facilities is critical. And I think should the preferred alignment have that interaction with their facilities, there's opportunity to have discussions to them to see if there could be some mutual benefit in this project and their operations. Another question about what's up our process to connect with potential stakeholders for future community engagement opportunities. Kristen, you want to mention that? Like how can we stay in touch with people?
Yeah. So we've been out to a couple of community meetings, and I mentioned the ongoing meetings that we've been having with various stakeholders. So we are happy to meet with additional groups. Yep. In this beginning phase, we've been kind of gathering information, but as we are starting to develop more definitive plans, I think it's a good time to bring additional stakeholders in.
There's a couple questions here about funding. It's asking about if there's fund money for the project in the existing state transportation budget, how the project's going to be funded. Do you want to say something briefly about that?
Sure. There is currently no money in the existing state transportation budget for this project. However, we have been talking with Snohomish County area legislators about a potential funding request in the 2026 legislative session. We are also pursuing grant and other funding opportunities as well. There are grants at the federal, state, and local level that we can pursue.
Keith had a good question about fencing and especially related to adjacency to the BNSF tracks and other private property. Yes, as we move into the design phase in the next few months, that's certainly something that we'll be focusing on is both access to the trail, but also making sure that security is maintained for adjacent land uses like private properties, BNSF. and others. Couple of questions here about like future extensions. And let me see. And other connections. There's a good question about parking, like where are people going to park that are going to come visit this trail. So a part of what we're doing, and certainly once a preferred alignment is selected, would be looking for opportunities to site trailheads and parking, and the county's already doing that to some extent. And so there's parking available at the west end connection, but they'll be looking for additional opportunities to do so. Yes, thank you for the comments about additional stakeholders. That's really good information for us.
Mm-hmm.
Some comments about City of Snohomish residents excited about this trail and want to continue to be engaged. I think, Kristen, what do you think? I think the questions are starting to slow down. I've answered most of them. We'll also have a record of these that we have the ability to follow up with folks. So now's probably a good time. I think people are eager to see the alignment options. So why don't we move on to that?
All right. Okay, so we recognize that we didn't get all the questions answered, and when we have the breakout rooms, you'll have the opportunity to talk with people. So again, so this is a long corridor, 5.5 miles or so. So we broke it up into kind of 3 chunks to facilitate our analysis. The first segment is City of Everett and Snohomish County. It's the northwest end from Rotary Park to just before Fiddler's Bluff, and I'll show you a map in just a moment so you'll be able to see this. The middle segment is from about Fiddler's Bluff to Fields Riffle, and then the last segment is the southeastern end from just west of Fields Riffle to the future Centennial Trail South. So these are the alignments that we are looking at, and we've been working on this project for many months, and we have drawn a lot of lines and taken lines off and refined lines. And what we've ended up with is essentially a potential alignment along Lowell Snohomish River Road. In some cases, there's it's clear which side of the road it would go on. In other cases, not so. So we didn't designate a side of the road for that. So you can see that in the dotted blue line that follows the road. The option B, and you can see the segment boxes there. Option B would follow the PSE right of way to the south of the BNSF line. I mentioned that the county owns part of that, but not all of that. So there's some complexity there. And then the third option in red is along the Snohomish River riverbank. And there are places, there's a lot of complexity there where some places it's narrow, some places it's wider, some places there is county land or public land, and other places we would need to negotiate with private landowners. So those in a nutshell are the 3 segments. And I forgot to give you kind of an overview. So there's Rotary Park up above right there. And there's that bridge I mentioned that the city is planning to update. One of the big issues we have is a crossing of that. If we went this way, we would need to cross that stream. And then coming along here, SR9 is down here, and then Harvey Airfield and crossing over into Snohomish. So we are talking about potentially a trail along a roadway, what we would call a side path, a trail along the river, a trail in areas that might have sensitive areas. So the cross section of the trail would be different wherever it is. So we threw a few cross sections in here for you to give you a sense of what the trail might look like. There are standards that we would be following, and we would want to create as wide a trail as possible, but we also need to fit it into the context. So whether that is land use constraints or critical areas restraints, the trail width would flex to respond to those local conditions. So here's your typical shared use path. Here's what it might look like next to a roadway. There would be a shoulder and then a vegetated buffer. That could be a ditch. In some places, the roadway prism would not support the trail as is, so we would need to do some fill, but it gives you a sense of the relationship between the travel lanes and the shared use path. A boardwalk would be required in places where there's some critical areas impacts, for example, some wetlands, and then a trail on the could be on a levee as well. So just to give you a sense of what the trail might look like in those different conditions. We didn't put a lot of dimensions on there again because it would flex to the local conditions. So we developed these options, and then we worked really hard to develop a methodology for evaluating them. And we ended up with kind of 6 main evaluation criteria. So we want alignments that really avoid, and if not avoid, minimize environmental impacts to wetlands and streams. We want an alignment that uses right-of-way, public right-of-way to the degree possible, and is also compatible with land use. We want something that would minimize conflicts with travel lanes, so wouldn't ask people to cross the road multiple times. I'm kind of jumping around here. And then something that is feasible and constructible. There's a lot of complexity in trying to get construction vehicles out into these areas and not creating bigger headaches for during construction and maintenance. So those are kind of the quantitative evaluation criteria. We also really want to factor in what it's like to be on the trail. You know, a trail alongside a roadway is going to be a different experience than a trail alongside the river. So that's something we want to take into account. So not just the scenic quality, but also making sure it feels safe and comfortable for people. Like maybe it's not too, doesn't feel too isolated, that people are able to get on and off the trail easily. And yeah, just feels safe and comfortable. And then community support, which we're working on tonight. So those are the kind of buckets of criteria that we developed. So our methodology is really a tool to assist in decision making. It allows us to assess the alignments against one another using both these quantitative and qualitative criteria. They give us what we are calling a performance score, and we've been playing around with weighting different criteria because some are more important or significant. For example, environmental impacts. We can't get around some of the regulatory restrictions there. So we environmental impacts are a big deal. We also developed some rough costs, and because of the I keep saying complexity, but there's a lot of complexity on this corridor. So we have developed rough costs and are considering those in the criteria as well. And then the one thing that we haven't really finalized is community input. So that's what we're here with you tonight to talk about. All right, so I'm going to go into a little more detail on each of these alignments, and then we'll give you a chance to talk about them in smaller groups. So this is section 1, and it's pretty straightforward, connecting from Rotary Park along the river or along the roadway. You can see there are some restoration areas, and the riverbank is of varied width. So we don't know the exact alignment, but we would try to find something that is constructible and maintainable along with the levee, but also is safe for people. There are options to be on either side of the road in this area for alignment A. And what else was I going to say? Oh, the county right of way along the PSC corridor ends kind of just around right before the the City of Everett boundary. So this segment to the north is not in public ownership. That was one that we looked at, extending just all the way up to Rotary Park and that neighborhood. We would need to cross Wood Creek, so that is not an easy task. We also looked at coming up between this parcel here, which is owned by the tribes, and these parcels here, which are owned by the City of Everett. So going between those two parcels. And I think I mentioned the city is looking to upgrade this bridge where Wood Creek comes out to the river. And the tribes have a plan to do some restoration, salmon restoration in this area. One other thing to note on this map is, or in general, even though it's broken into 3 segments, each of the segments could connect. We could mix and match any of these alternatives. So we could go along the river in one segment, along the PSC right away in another segment. So we're not constrained that way. So we've shown some of the connection points, potential connection points with the circles. And then the railroad trestles, I think it's probably really hard to see, but those are shown in purple. So those are opportunities to get people from one side of the BNSF corridor to another. So I think that's good for that. So I'll move on to the next option, the middle option. So again, coming along the south side of the railroad along the PSE corridor, for a lot of this segment, but not all of it, there is an existing access road that we would try to utilize. It's swampy out there. There are wetlands and streams for sure. So that's something that we would need to negotiate and navigate. And the agriculture is right up against the county right away there. So that's an issue. There is the possibility of coming along the river through here. There are a lot of private parcels, so that would be something that we would have to understand what the impacts to some of those, the flower farms and the business here. But our goal is to get people over to Fields Riffle so that they can have access to the river. So that's one of our thoughts is we can mix and match, but we definitely want to access these points where people can see and be near the river. Right. Oops. And our final segment, a lot of complexity here as well. I mentioned the airfield. They have this runway protection zone that basically encompasses all of the PSC right of way here. And that is for the safety of for airfield operations and for the safety of people. So they are not keen to have anything coming along this way, although the county owns that. The road is another opportunity. It is narrow here. It's hasn't been rebuilt like the segment to the west. So it's narrow. There are ditches. The properties come right up to the road edge. So there are a lot of challenges there. And we would that would follow the road and then come down across this existing crossing, railroad crossing, and connect up with a future Centennial Trail extension somewhere in this area. Another option that we looked at was kind of peeling off from the PSC right away and coming alongside SR9. We looked at both sides, but kind of ended up with something along the west side, maybe crossing over to the east side. And then at Marsh Road, a couple of different options for getting to the future Centennial Trail extension. The airfield has some plans to expand, so that's a little bit up in the air. If that happens and they were to rebuild the road, Airport Way, there's the option to kind of run the trail alongside of Airport Way. We also looked at coming down along this kind of little local roads, Springhetty and 111th southeast. So those are a couple other options. Did I miss anything, Dustin?
I think you did a pretty good job there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So that's the overview. So now we are going to jump into our breakout room. So we're going to have, let's see, we have, 58 people. That's a lot of people. We have 3 breakout rooms, and in each room, you can talk about whatever you want. We've loaded up each room with different kind of experts. So if you have kind of technical trail design, safety focused, how the trail would be built, any of those kinds of questions, you can go into room 1, and Adam and Dustin will be in that one. Room 2 will have Liliana, who will be able to talk with you about critical areas and environmental issues, and Sarah will be there. And then if you can't decide between those two, or you just have some general questions, you can jump into room 3 with me and Ed. So,
And Kristen, I'll add that.
excuse me.
Yeah,
I missed
no,
something. Yeah, good.
no, just that we'll allow everyone, or Sarah should do something here to allow folks to turn their video on. And I think we're gonna ask that you use the raise your hand feature, and then we can kind of go through questions and have a discussion. And each of us will have these maps up, and we'll also be recording the breakout rooms because we want to make sure that we don't miss any feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do have some questions for the breakout room discussions, but you're obviously welcome to discuss anything. So, so we're gonna talk for a bit, and then we'll come back as a group, and each group will kind of report out about some highlights of the discussion.
I think we'll have about 30 minutes, I think, in the breakout rooms.
Yeah.
All right.
I think
Great. I'm
Sarah
going to
was put the
open the room
questions
then.
in the
Yeah.
chat. Yep. Okay.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah. All right. I have not done a lot of breakout rooms, so I think this is we're in the room, the right room. I think we automatically got put in there. Is everyone here wanting to be in room 3? Yeah. No. Okay. Let's see. I'm not sure how to get you there. Oh, okay. I guess I can assign you if you need to. Room 3. Are you able to choose a room? Okay, I just need to get myself into room 3. Hi, everyone. Welcome to room 3. I'm going to pull up the map.
And I put the questions in the chat.
Great. Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen? with the map?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. Who's the brave soul who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go. Hey, Kristen, this is Robert Dietrich. I'm a Snohomish City resident. Um, really excited about the prospect of having this trail. Um, but I'm curious about how big we can dream here, because in my mind it will be when I think about the trail being located next to a railroad, or being located next to a busy high-speed road, or being located on the riverbank. I mean, the latter honestly sounds the most ideal from a usage perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But it also sounds like that's potentially the most expensive if rights of way need to be bought up, and when dealing with the levee and periodic flooding events and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm just curious at this point, do we know how much those different factors push us in one direction or another
Mm-hmm.
amongst these options?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, there's a lot going on in this corridor, and no, there isn't any easy option, and that probably is why this trail hasn't been built yet, because there are no easy options. So, yeah, it's a conversation with the community, with the stakeholders. It's looking at the numbers. It's all of those things. So, we're really hoping that the community will provide some input, and that will help us kind of go one direction or another. But there are probably also some kind of just feasibility considerations that will kind of drive the project to some degree.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you see are sort of the biggest barriers? Because there's challenges in every direction here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so what I don't know, just with your familiarity with it so far, what do you think are sort of a little bigger environmental or rights of way,
Mm-hmm.
um or some of the other issues?
Yeah. So the PSC corridor to the south of the railroad, it has some challenges in terms of the adjacent agricultural operations. Um, you know, it's what the county owns, but it has that kind of land use compatibility conflict. There are also quite a number of wetlands and marshy areas along there, so we would need to probably build boardwalks, which are expensive. And you know, you don't have a visual connection to the river, and you would have to cross under one of the trestles to get to the road. But it would also be kind of, there would be nice scenery along the trail looking out into the agricultural areas as well. I mean, the last time I was out there, lots of birds, so yeah, it's a really amazing experience. So that one has those challenges. So I would say environmental and land use constraints are kind of primary along uh, alignment B. Alignment C along the river. There are places where it seems like it could be somewhat easy, or there are fewer land use conflicts along the north. But again, building trails on levees seems like it would be easy, but the levee really has an important job, and adding a trail on top of it might make that job more challenging for it. It's really meant to hold out water, so we don't want to do anything that would compromise that levee. And then obviously there's a lot of private properties along here, so people will have privacy issues, and might want people tromping around so close to their places. So there's a lot of problems with that one too. But it would be wonderful to be close to the river. So yeah.
I'm curious too because if it's option A along the road or option B along the railroad,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was mentioned that a goal was to be able to support fishing along the river.
Hmm.
I mean, it seems like I mean you'd need to incorporate crossing a major or crossing a busy high-speed road as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. We have thought a bit about that. If we were to go along the PSE corridor, there are a couple places where we could make a connection to the kind of a spur, I guess, is what I'm, yeah. We've been thinking about some spurs and some loops that people could do. So, yeah. And we would design those, locate those in places where we could make a safe crossing. So not on a curve, for example, or where there are sight distance issues.
okay, thanks for that. I'm going to be
Yeah.
quiet now because I see other hands raised.
Yeah. Christina, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Here's Christina Chapito-Plath. I'm with Snohomish County Health Department, and my perspective here is more along the lines of the user experience.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to piggyback off of what Robert was saying. It seems to me like the best alternative would be along the river
Hmm.
for multiple reasons. So from our perspective, we would want to have something that one increases exposure to green and blue zones, areas, right? To get those benefits for mental health, have access to opportunities for physical activity and increase that while maximizing safety and minimizing exposure to greenhouse gases, right? Like to emissions from vehicles on the road
Hmm.
and potentially from the trains going on the railroads. So I think that should be considered. And potentially I did a quick search for literature, for scientific literature, and I couldn't find an easy or kind of quick paper that highlights whether the impacts from, like trains or train adjacent trails are greater or lower than by having trails next to roads.
Hmm.
So I think we would need to look more to the scientific literature around that to see what actually would minimize exposure to toxicants from air pollution
Hmm.
for users. And we would want safety, right? We would want to look at safety to have buffers.
Hmm.
If it's decided to have the trail close to or next to the road,
Hmm.
to have potentially like green buffers like you showed on one of the illustrations on one of your slides,
Hmm.
to kind of mitigate some of that exposure to greenhouse gases, to emissions from
Hmm.
vehicles.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think those are my thoughts, and to have lighting um, and multiple parking areas along the trail
Great.
and minimize those conflicts
Hmm. Yeah.
for increased safety.
Thank you. Those are all great comments. Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, hi. I think Kimberly Moore knows what I'm going to talk about. Well, first of all, I like the Route C generally along the river. I mean, that's the whole point of the trail. And I really, that's my plan really. And it goes with the City of Everett bike master plan and the shoreline public access plan as well, is
Hmm.
to have public access along the river.
Hmm.
And I wanted to kind of talk about, for me, the elephant in the room is that this ends at Lowell
Hmm.
on the Everett end. And one of our more densely populated neighborhoods, Delta, is the north end of the river.
Mhm.
And we're residential. We can see the river, but we can't get to it.
Mhm.
And this is not addressed. Every time I see a river trail plan, I get excited, but it never includes us. And so you wouldn't need parking there. We have Jackson Park with a huge parking lot. We have a bunch of people living there who would love to walk, run, and bike along the river, and we can't. And so that's a really big hole. I'm kind of disappointed that that was kind of silenced during the larger discussion, because now I'm only talking to one small group, because that needs to be said. It's the historically marginalized neighborhood of Everett. The housing authority primarily is there. Gosh, yeah, I mean, we house a lot of county services. We have the youth jail there in our neighborhood. We have a needle exchange there across the street from our park. We have BNSF Delta Yard 500 feet from my house. It operates 24/7. The county doesn't ask them to be silent at night so that we can sleep. They bang and crash waste management garbage containers from the whole county, and we don't have any benefit from that. So, the county needs to start showing our neighborhood that it cares.
Yeah, I don't know if Ed is able to speak to why the project boundaries were set the way they are, but I think we have to start somewhere, and this is where they started. And the plan is to extend on either end. And I will say also that the county is leading this segment of the project, and collaborating with the City of Everett, but City of Everett is a little bit behind on their planning. Yeah, if
Hi,
that's fair.
everybody.
Yeah.
If you don't
Go
mind
ahead,
me
Kimberly. Yes.
speaking up, I'm Kimberly Moore. I'm with Everett City Parks, and Ryan, it's really nice to see you here. I'm glad you're voicing your concerns. Uh, this is definitely this is a big project we're talking about here. Uh, Separately, though, this is kind of a county and City of Everett collaborative project. The City of Everett itself is actively working on getting a trail that connects from Rotary Park all the way back around to the Port of Everett. It's just going to take time, Ryan. We actually received a Conservation Futures grant from Snohomish County. So thank you very much to them for acquisition of some property right under Highway 2. That will connect with the new construction that's going to happen at Eclipse Mill Park, which will connect the little riverfront trail. After that, we will need to work with BNSF on a section that could attach to the new Epic site trail that will go in. Then it'll attach to an existing Riverside trail. So we definitely have a plan to get up to Delta and to connect Delta to this trail regionally. It's not part of this discussion, but it's definitely something we're happy to talk to you about separately, or once we get closer to the realization of this all happening. But we're pretty excited about the connections that Everett's working on. So I think I think it could be a real different reality in the next decade, but I sure wish it could happen faster.
Thank you for jumping in to answer that question.
Sure.
Yeah. I think
And
Ken was
thank you for
next. Oh, go
sharing
ahead.
your concerns, Ryan.
Yeah. Thank you. Ken,
Yeah,
I
you
think you're
bet.
next.
Thank you for hosting this. I own Toppet Yogurt Shop in downtown Snohomish, and I'm the president of the Historic Downtown Snohomish Association. So this is intriguing for all of us in the downtown area. I've got two questions for you. Is how do you envision connecting this with kind of the historic downtown district? And Snohomish generally,
Mhm.
and also what kind of roadblocks do you foresee happening with the floodplains, actual construction and how that's going to influence these different possible trails?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so we're imagining a connection just going across the river on Avenue D. Our project would not entail any improvements on Avenue D, but really just deliver people there so they could cross the river. But we've already started talking about could we do a loop in segment 3 that would allow people to kind of go up into Snohomish and get coffee, get ice cream, have lunch, that kind of thing. That seems like a no-brainer to create some smaller loops for people to do that. So we definitely see making connections to nearby destinations as a bonus for sure. Um, the floodplain issue is one that I don't feel equipped to answer. Liliana, our environmental scientist, might be able to answer that better. But we know we'll need to do some floodplain modeling. We know that, yeah, it's a big issue. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah. Siobhan?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm with the City of Snohomish. I work in public works, and we are actively planning our master plan for First Street at this time as well. You mentioned that the crossing is going to be over near Avenue D. Is there going to be any improvements to the bridge for pedestrian traffic? Because those sidewalks are super narrow and in really bad condition. And
Uh-huh.
is the crossing over the railroad tracks not happening?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe someone from the county wants to answer that, but the Centennial Trail South project is taking on that crossing of the river.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So these will eventually, at some point, maybe be connected, or these are going to be two independent trail.
No, definitely the plan is to connect them. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Right now, we don't know which alignment we're gonna we're gonna do, but we definitely imagine that making connections to allow people to go into Snohomish is important. So I'm not able to say right now what the plans for that are, but recognizing that it's something that should be done.
Yeah, because as we're progressing on our First Street Master Plan too, the intersection at Avenue D and First is one of our high intersections because of visibility and crossing and the light there. So
Mhm.
adding additional foot traffic is concerning.
Mhm.
One of the options we are proposing for that is an all-way stop, so that
Mhm.
might help with the traffic, but then just something to keep in mind if you're routing foot traffic, that's a problematic intersection for us.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Keith. Keith, you want to go ahead? Maybe you're having audio problems. Any, because we can't hear you. Are you able to unmute yourself? All right, maybe we'll go to the next question or next person while he figures out his audio. Did anybody have any comments on the questions that we put in the chat? Do you think this trail would support which of the alignments do you think would best support a range of activities? What do you see as the biggest opportunities for the trail? Are there constraints that we didn't talk about? Is there anything that we should know about a specific segment or alignment?
So, hey, this is Keith back. I think
Oh, great.
I figured out how to unmute myself. How about?
Excellent.
Hey, so I am the chairman of the Snohomish County Agricultural Advisory Board,
Uh-huh.
and Ed came out and met with us as a board and presented all of this. I don't know, several months ago.
Mhm.
And so I just want to highlight the fact that that alignment on the south side of the railroad tracks impacts a lot of commercial agriculture.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and, these are conventional farmers. Actually, one of them, the largest blueberry farm in Western Washington.
Mhm.
And to put an alignment on that side of the tracks and impose the public on agriculture in that way is a problem.
Mhm.
And I guess you're aware of that. So
Yes.
I'm just kind of speaking to the group in general that the Ag Board has a position that we should seek an alignment that's on the north side of the railroad tracks
Mhm.
throughout the trail system.
Mhm.
And along the river would certainly access the scenic beauty of the river and the access to recreation. We think that's probably a better place to put that. Not to mention that using the road coming to Airport Way right there at the Avenue D Bridge
Mhm.
does give us a closer access into the city of Snohomish and kind of drives the economic engine in town there rather than being aligned down on Springgetty Road, a mile away from town.
Mhm. Mhm.
It feels like it's too far from the city of Snohomish, where we should try to be bringing people into town and then down toward Pilchuck Julia Park.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so there's a concern there from the ag community, and I just wanted to step in and share that.
Thank you.
Can I throw in a follow-on question there?
Yes.
Because Keith, I don't know. Hey, this is Robert. Good to see you. Um, I certainly living in town, I hear the duck hunting that goes on weekend mornings, but is that also, do you know, is that along that south side of the railroad tracks as well?
Yeah, Robert, there are several duck hunting leases out in that area. And so, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that honestly, but is that really where we want to trail, or how would
Mhm.
people feel in terms of safety when there's, hunting going on that private land out there?
Mhm.
Um, so that would be a consideration. The
Mhm.
other thing too is being along the railroad track. You're going to need a fence on the railroad right away to keep
Right.
people off the
Mhm.
track. You're
Mhm.
going to need a fence on the private property side to keep people out of the fields.
Mhm.
And and then you have a flood coming through every 10 years that's going to
Mhm.
wipe all that out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and boy, the maintenance of that, I don't know how we as farmers tend to avoid putting fences up in the floodplain because of the impact of floods and the cost of maintaining them. So,
Mhm.
um, is that a liability that the county is in a position to take on?
Mhm. I'm making notes here. Yeah, I think when we started the project, we thought, oh, yeah, there's this right away. Well, this is where we're going to put the trail, but it became evident that it's not that easy. So that's why we've been looking all over. But there are impacts to other places too, like impacts to private property along the river, for example, in some places. So anyone else?
Hi there. I'll jump in.
Yeah, can you say I don't see your name.
I'm Kimberly.
Oh, Kimberly, hi. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I live in downtown Snohomish, and I I really just came today for learning. So I don't have like um super strong opinion and appreciate the time and the learning. I think I just want to share how super excited I am about this. Just the idea of having the trail connect to downtown Snohomish, but then to also connect with ideally I thought the River Trail and the Centennial Current Trail and the Future South Trail.
Mhm.
So I also assumed it was along the river.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting to see that there was these other options that were quite far away from the river.
Mhm.
So I also would vote for the closest to nature
Mhm.
and the river. And I also am a little surprised now to see, I would expect that the connection point would be a priority,
Mhm.
so that the option is really thinking about also connecting to Snohomish, the River Trail, the
Mhm.
Centennial Trail North, and the Future South. And also because the Future South is many years away,
Right. Mhm.
prioritizing that connection closer sooner
Mhm.
would be just some of my initial observations. I think the only other really kind of small thing that I'll share, Christina mentioned lighting.
Mhm.
I actually live in a house near one of the public trails.
Mhm.
And, I think a perspective on that is that lighting and waymaking signage can be really helpful, and historical signage and basic lighting, but
Mhm.
also recognizing that people live there.
Yeah.
So whether it's in town, urban, or out in the fields and the homes,
Mhm.
more subtle lighting or motion,
Mhm.
and considering that safety. So those are just some of my comments reacting to this, but also really supportive and excited about it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for those comments. I just noticed that I think Tony and Kathy Selma are here. So I think they just joined the breakout room here. So I just want to give them a minute or two to talk, to ask a question or make a comment
Yeah. Thanks,
in the
Ed.
time that we have left. I think you have to unmute yourself, Tony and Kathy. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, as you know, we have property along the red dotted line there along the river,
Mhm.
as we've talked about. I have two or three different concerns. You can mix and match this trail.
Mhm.
One thing I was wondering about is how would you go about crossing that road,
Mhm.
crossing the river road?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's like probably the biggest concern of this whole deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
So go
unless
ahead.
you live down here, you don't know what goes on down here.
Mhm.
This road is a high-speed road that is very rarely maintained by the sheriff's department, because
Mhm.
I've dealt with it a lot in my
Mhm.
time down
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
We also have this, from one end of this road to the other is highly trafficked. Um, I don't know what do you want to call it?
Transient population, maybe?
Transient population
Uh-huh.
that is really bad. I've been robbed several times down here.
Mhm.
We have a big problem with that down here, and you don't know it unless you're down here and you're living it at night. It's
Mhm.
another problem that this trail will have on it all night, every night during the summer,
Mhm.
guaranteed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's definitely what's going to happen,
Mhm.
because it already does happen.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing is that these other businesses, well, that being said, with these other businesses and these other people that I know that live right here along the river, if that you put that along right on top of the dike right there, we're
Mhm.
also going to have those same people next to our homes and our
Mhm.
businesses and our barns
in our
Mhm.
backyard.
and our
Mhm.
backyards, 20
Mhm.
feet from our homes.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, you'd have to put yourself in my shoes on that one.
We
Mhm.
wouldn't have any privacy.
No privacy. You're
Yeah.
gonna have nothing but problems for us.
Mhm. So privacy and security concerns. There we go. All right. Hi, everyone.
Kristen.
Um, How about we start with group one doing a report out?
Yeah, we had a lot of great comments and discussion. I think some of the things we focused, there's a lot of discussion on the east end and how the trail would get around Harvey Airfield. A number of comments kind of desire to take the most direct route, knowing that 3C, those red lines, is quite a bit out of the way for people that are either coming from or going to the city of Snohomish. We talked a little bit more in detail, Kristen, about that there's a lot of locations where we can kind of switch between different alignments. Primarily like where the red C alignment gets close to the blue A alignment along the road, or where there's existing undercrossings, railroad trestles, where it could swap between 2B and 2A. And so I just noted that, we're kind of starting out at this higher level and trying to identify the preferred kind of main alignment for each segment. And then as we get into design, that'll get refined, and we'll kind of consider some of those locations where it could swap back and forth. And I think the other thing I'll mention, there was some discussion on like Springhetty Road and 111th, the fact that they're very narrow. And I brought up that, that road segment and potentially some segments on Lowell Snohomish River Road, may need, it's not as simple as just kind of tacking on a trail to the side of the existing pavement, that like some of those areas, the kind of full roadway may need to get rebuilt along with this project. Questions about trailhead locations, and I just noted that we're looking at those to provide parking and access points along the corridor. And then the last thing I'll mention, we had some discussion around the trail user and like the fact that, a commuter or, somebody that where, this 5-mile segment is a part of a longer 60-mile ride may want to kind of blow through here quickly and want the most straight, direct route. Whereas someone that's more in it for the recreation, views, water access, would prefer 2C, but there's kind of, there could be a pretty widespread of how users want to use the trail, which certainly informs the alignment selection. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Good. Yeah, sounds like it was a robust conversation about the whole corridor.
Yeah, really great comments.
Are we recording again? Yep. Okay, good. Liliana and Sarah, do you want to report out what your group talked about?
Do you want to talk, Sarah? Or do you want me to go?
I can start, and then you follow up with any specific environmental aspects that I missed. Yeah, some really great comments and all of this wonderful local knowledge from people who've been in the area for years. So a lot of comments about, like, for example, salmon recovery, just, I guess, wildlife habitat in general. So yeah, salmon. This is a very important migratory corridor, riparian vegetation area, along with the fact that there's a lot of coyotes within this area, deer, along with the presence of waterfowl, and just the importance of making sure we're considering these species in our design. There's also mention of the fact that there's hunting presence in some of these areas, like Fields Riffle, and a little bit of touching on some of the amenity options that could potentially be available, like seating, educational signage, or trailheads or trail spurs. So some of those kind of user experience aspects that the project team is considering and appreciates additional feedback on. So that was kind of some of the higher level pieces that I heard. But Liliana, anything else to add in?
That was, I think a lot of people touched on just concern for the trail impacting wildlife use, especially the north area and Fields Riffle. Those were two pretty important wildlife areas. So yeah, it's great. Good information.
Ah, great. Okay, our group was the general questions, and it did definitely run the gamut. There's a lot of things that we covered. Let's see. There were someone who was from the Delta neighborhood was, really interested in the extensions of the trail. And was bummed that we weren't going that far in this project. So it was great. Kimberly from City of Everett was able to jump in and talk about that. And then on the other end, there were people who wanted a stronger crossing into Snohomish. The 3C alignment really pushes people away from Snohomish. It's like a mile out of the way. And while it does connect to the future Centennial Trail, that's many years off. And they felt like it was really important to strengthen the connection up into Snohomish and wondered about improvements along Avenue D because that roadway is substandard for biking and walking. So, and the city is also doing some work on First Avenue and some visioning for their downtown. So it's a kind of a good time to be thinking about tying into that. What else? We talked about crossing people on Lowell Snohomish River Road. It's a busy high-speed road. And so just concern about safety and making sure, if people were crossing, how could you make that a safe and comfortable crossing? We talked about nuisance activities, not just along the railroad, but along Fields Riffle and Fiddler's Bluff. That area has had robberies and other nuisance activities. So concern about bringing more people down the trail, if that would increase that. And also obviously privacy and safety concerns. One person talked about lighting for safety, but another person was concerned, that lighting is good, but, are there impacts to the people who live nearby with that? We also talked about the duck hunting briefly. There was talk about kind of the public health aspects of the alignment. So whether it is near the roadway or the railroad and the pollutants that might come from that versus being along the river. So did I miss anything, Ed?
I think we also heard from someone on the Snohomish County Agricultural Advisory Board
Yes,
about,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah, about expressing concerns about impacts of a trail alignment running along the south side of the rail line on the nearby agricultural operation. And we also heard from people who live out near the river, have a venue out near the river, expressing concerns about trespassing, theft by people who happen to do that along the Lower Snohomish River Road, and expressing concern about similar impacts from a trail running in that vicinity.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to jump ahead on my slides. Oh, report back. Okay, so I wanted to share a little bit about our next steps. I mentioned, oops, excuse me, I mentioned this before, but so we are continuing engagement and jurisdictional and agency coordination. We're also going to be trying to figure out how to phase this project, break it up into more manageable chunks, and then we'll start on gathering more base information. So utility coordination, getting a survey, developing base maps, and geotechnical investigations. And then a lot of environmental documentation is going to need to happen, and figuring out kind of storm drainage and floodway things, probably some modeling there, and then helping the county get grants and support them as they get money for funding the project. And all this will help us develop our 30% plans and refined cost opinions. So that is the next phase of the project. starting in January, and it'll go on for about another year or so. So that was the phase 2. And I think that is just about it. We might end early. We want to encourage people to take the project survey, which will be on the website, I think, in the next few days or maybe next week. And I put the website address below and a QR code. Hopefully I did it right, to get you to that project webpage. We've recorded the meeting, so you're welcome to point people to that. And we definitely want you to share this information with your friends and your neighbors and your connections. We really, you are the experts, the people who live in this area and work in this area, you're the experts. And so your local knowledge, the stuff that we learned today is really valuable for us. So I want to keep that channel open. And we want to build support. We did hear from someone who was quite excited about the project. So it's all good to hear about that. Another opportunity might be an advisory committee that the county might form on this project. So I think that is the last of my slides. Yeah, thank you so much for participating. And I think Ed wanted to say a few things to close out.
Sure. So this wraps up our meeting about the Snohomish River Regional Trail project. And as Kristen mentioned, we do have an online survey coming up very soon. Look for that on the project website. We're looking forward to your feedback about what you heard tonight and ways you might want to help. And if you ever want updates on the project, feel free to visit the project website, and I put a link to that in the chat. There's a couple of links. They both take you to the same webpage. Also, please feel free to reach out to me with any concerns, questions, or comments. I put my contact information in the chat, and I'm happy to come out and meet with you, go out in the field and walk around and listen to what you have to say, and we can talk about the project as well. Thank you so much for attending tonight's meeting and giving us your thoughts and comments.